So now let's try to understand project planning in more detail. So if we look into the stage of project planning, we may be able to split the overall function of project planning into various steps. And you will come across different discussions in different books, and different scholars, they have looked into planning from various different perspectives. Now, based on my research, my findings, and my experience, I look into planning, and this again is referred or peer-reviewed by other scholarly resources, is that planning could be looked into three different steps. So the step number one in planning is to recalibrate your goals for the project. Step two of the project plan is to be able to develop activity structures, and step three in the project planning is to allocate the activities. So now we'll talk about each of these steps in more detail. So the first one is to recalibrate the project goals. So why do we use the word recalibrate? So if we look into the step one, a project charter, where we have already discussed about writing project scope, we already talked about the project charter already includes the project's goals and objectives. So it's evident that your project charter document has already shed light on those aspects, which includes goals and objectives, what's the vision of the project, what is the justification of the project, and then you submit the project charter to your sponsor or the stakeholders. Now, after you have submitted your project charter, you may end up receiving lots of feedback from your project sponsor that maybe one of your objectives was not aligned with the outcome of the project, or something that you have mentioned as a success criteria, or like measuring the impact of the project, may not be what the stakeholder considered right. So that means there are some flaws in your project charter documents. Not flaws, maybe there are some areas where you need to develop. So project planning is the stage where you recalibrate all of your goals based on all of the feedback that you have received from your audience or your stakeholders. So in the step one, to recalibrate your goals and objectives, you need to revisit your goals and objectives for your project. And you have to use acronyms like SMART, which we have already discussed. Another acronym is called CLEAR. So CLEAR refers to collaborative, limited, emotional, appreciable, refinable. So these are jargons, and not necessarily you will have to use like CLEAR and SMART everything as you have read, but these acronyms will give you some guidance, and using these would add more depth and rigor into your plan. So in the step one, you just need to look into these, revisit those acronyms and the meaning of those underlying words, like, those are like SMART, whether your project objectives has all of those elements, yes or no. And then you consider the feedback given by your stakeholders and see if those two match with each other. If there's discrepancies, you need to again speak with your project sponsor and the stakeholders so that you are all on the same page. So setting the goals and objectives is most important. We have talked about this before, that your objective will give you the track or the path that, whether you can walk straight into that path or there's like deviations, yes or no. So that is very important in project planning. So step two in the project planning is to develop some activity structures. And this is where you need to take the help of some tools. And the popular tool are like WBS, which is known as Work Breakdown Structure, and Gantt Chart, and CPM, and there's a whole heap of different tools. And these days you will find that things have become more automated, like there's like Monday, Trello, there's like a whole heap of different softwares that are available to pick and choose from. So in this step, you need to actually create a structure of all of the activity, because you have set up all of the objectives, but how exactly you are going to execute them, that you need to show in a more sort of black and white form. And work breakdown structure is a great tool which helps you to break up the whole work into different stream of work. And then you may use Gantt Chart, which is a tool we have discussed about Gantt Chart before. It's a great tool which was invented during the early 1900s, and still today we are using. The tool was named after a person whose surname was Gantt, but we're still using that tool. Crux of this step is that you need to create those structures, which is very important. So to develop your activity structure, there's few things that you can do, and these are to define the activities and tasks needed to achieve your goals, and then organize and prioritize activities and tasks, identify which tasks depend on others, assign team members to activities, and define dates to begin and finish. So here's an example of a work breakdown structure. Now, if you look into this matrix, there's a hierarchical relationship, all of the various boxes with one another. So on the very top row, you have your goal, which is your overarching goal for the project. And then you divide the goal into various activities. So in this case, you have 4 different activities, and then those activities need to be again subdivided into various tasks. And these tasks are all related to achieve those activities. So you split them into task 1, task 2, task 3, 4, likewise. So thus you put all of your goals and objectives into separate work breakdown structure. Now, you may not have to use separate work breakdown structure for all of your objectives, but it depends on the volume of the project, it depends on the task or scope of the project. But this is how you develop your work breakdown structure. So we'll talk about work breakdown structure in depth in our Monday's class, but I thought I will give you a quick glimmer of what is work breakdown structure. Next is Gantt chart. So here's one example of Gantt chart, and we talked about Gantt chart before. So as you can see in this Gantt chart is that on the left hand side you have the description of all of your tasks, and the right hand side, which is the row, and each of these row is actually the milestone that you need to achieve corresponding to each of the tasks. So there could be different version of Gantt chart, but typically the Gantt chart would give you an overall structure of the task. So Gantt chart is a very practical tool, and you can also use Gantt chart to develop the activity structures. So the step number 3 in the project planning is to allocate all of the activities according to the goals and objectives. And in order to do that, there's 2 important things that you need to keep in mind. So when it comes to allocating all of the activities, there are some factors that needs to be considered, and these are the perspective of the team leader who is going to assign the activities, and the perspective of the team members who will be assigned. So you need to work out each of these 2 parties and look into some key factors. So the team leader need to ensure that these things are all ticked off from the list, which is confirming the availability of the resources, then understand team member skills, next is match skills to tasks, and finally establish progress milestones and reporting procedures. Similarly, the team members have also some responsibility. So in the step 3 of the project planning, the team members should consider the factors like know the project's purpose, understand their assignments, know the availability of the resources, be clear about deadlines, and understand how to address issues. So I hope this gives you a brief overview of what we're going to talk about this week's lecture, and I thought I will give you a quick glimpse of the overall topic rather than having another dense lecture. Now I will upload these videos, and along with that I will also upload some articles and some other links to videos, and definitely this will help you to understand the work breakdown structure and the other concepts that we have discussed. During our Monday's class we will dive deep into these topics, and the following week, which is week 5, we will probably try to use the work breakdown structure and Gantt chart in a more practical sense, so that it gives you a more hands-on experience rather than just, you know, the theoretical knowledge. So that's it for this week's recorded videos, and I'm hoping that you will keep listening to these videos throughout the course, and it will help you really to understand and probably reevaluate your knowledge as well if there's any gap in your understanding. So I will see you all in a Monday's lecture, right? Till then, take care and bye for now.